tell you a little bit about FDA and silver diamine fluoride. So just for background purposes, I'm an egghead professor in a dental school for like 45 years. And I spent my career taking care of fearful people and anxious people, mentally ill people, and I realized that there were some pretty severe deficiencies in our technology that we were using for dentistry that was causing people to become afraid. And so I started out just taking care of these people using what little I knew, and over time I became more and more aware that I needed to do something about the technology. So that's how I actually got involved in this. And my colleague Mike Shirtcliff and I were in his truck driving through a snowstorm in eastern Oregon, and I was had been telling him about silver diamine fluoride, and his standard response is always, well, what will it take to do this? Okay, it's like, if we really want to use this, what will it take? Well, I said, well, actually, I've been smuggling this back into the U.S. for quite a long time and using it in my clinic. So I started smuggling it in 1999, 2000, long before Jeremy heard about it. And Jeremy still had diapers at that point. And so I was using it in my fair clinic and, basically smuggling it. And Mike came along and said, well, what will it take? Well, neither he nor I understood what it was really going to take, because it didn't get cleared by the FDA until 2014. And I assure you that during that time, we weren't sitting still doing nothing. Okay, so basically what you heard from Jeremy, a couple things, okay. First of all, he used the word, the FDA cleared silver diamine fluoride. So what that means is that we convinced the FDA to allow us to treat silver diamine fluoride like fluoride varnish, okay? That was not a simple, they did not want to do that. But in the end, we managed to convince them that it blocked dental tubules, which is what fluoride varnish does, because fluoride varnish is approved basically as a desensitizer. So anything that blocks dental tubules can be treated as a desensitizer, and if you work hard enough with the FDA, you can sort of get them to buy into that argument. Okay, the problem with that is that you can't label your product for what it's for. You can't advertise your product. You can't, up until very recently, you could hardly, if you were a manufacturer, even answer anybody's questions about what's called off-label use. Okay, so your license allows you to use it, but as a public health person, as a person who's trying to change the system, it wasn't satisfactory to me to just simply say, okay, well now it's on the market. Because if you really want to change things, if you want to convince the insurance company to pay for it, if you want to convince our physician colleagues to accept it, you want the ADA to accept it, all that kind of stuff, all hinges on all this sort of official part of this process. Okay, so what we did was, when we went to the FDA at the beginning, we said to them, we know in a sense that this should really be a drug. Okay, like toothpaste, like 5,000 part per million fluoride, that it should be labeled for caries, that it should be used for caries, it should be advertised, we should be able to teach about it, shouldn't be any restrictions on it. We know, okay? We sat across the table from, Mike and I, sat across the table from the FDA regulator and said, we know, okay? But we qualify for this to get approved as cleared as a device, and we want you to do that. And that became the crux of the issue for a long time. We succeeded in getting it cleared. So it's legal for you to use it. It's legal for you to buy it, okay? It's just not legal to advertise it for caries. It's not legal, to do any kind of marketing like that at all, okay? And that means that there are still people, still dentists, who will probably not use it because they will say, just like they said with fluoride varnish when it first came out, well, it's off-label, it's not, it's not appropriate for this, okay? And in fact, one of the reasons that they don't use SDF in Japan for most caries is because the Japanese government did not approve SDF for caries, okay? In spite of the fact that that's what it's there for. Okay, they're very rigid in how they do things in Japan, and so most dentists will not use it. It flabbergasted me when I saw that. Okay, so at the suggestion of one of the dentists at the FDA, we applied for what's called breakthrough therapy status. And that breakthrough therapy status is for early childhood care, severe early childhood caries. Basically, I had to convince them, a committee that largely of not dentists, this was a committee of pediatricians and other public health people, I had to convince them that this was a serious enough problem for which there was no real meaningful treatment that worked. That they should basically let down their guard. Because the way the system works with the FDA, I go on and on, okay, but the way it works is it's adversarial, okay? It's designed for big pharma, so it's designed for dealing with Merck and Roche and all these big companies, okay, who have unlimited resources, okay? And here we are, Mike and I. Okay, and I can assure you, we do not have unlimited resources.
We spent $500,000 of my company's money and $500,000 of Peter's time in almost 10 years.
Right, and we almost thought we weren't going to succeed.
And Peter figured out that as a small business, so we formed an extra company, a small business, and rather than about $1 million, you can put up $50,000. Because to do a drug, you got to put up $1 million.
Yeah, well, the fee, the application fee for a drug at the FDA is $1 million. Okay, and every study that the FDA reviews, and they require studies, okay, is another $1 million for them to look at. Okay, so we got them to let down their guard. They said, Mike and Peter are public health people. They actually are doing good stuff. This is a really serious problem. How about if we cooperate? Now, their idea of cooperate is not the same as your idea of cooperate. Cooperate means you do what they tell you to do. That's cooperation. Okay. And, so for example, you say, well, this is really safe. It's been used thousands and thousands of times in other countries. They say, so what? Not here. Okay? I mean, so you have to prove every step of the way. So we have been going through this process. The final, what we hope will be the final steps in this process are two things. One is some safety data on SDF in very small children, because Jeremy showed you what we know, okay? But the FDA has expectations about safety studies being done in small children that are beyond what Jeremy showed you, okay? And we have done that. It hasn't been published yet, but we've done it. At the industry acceptable level, the FDA acceptable level. The other piece that's required is what's called a definitive trial. Most of the studies that have been done are what we call efficacy studies. So they basically ask the question, in a study population, in a population that you can get your hands on, okay, does it work? Does it work, say, versus, most of the studies are, does it work versus fluoride varnish? There's very few, there's essentially no placebo-controlled studies at all. And that's one of the problems, because the gold standard in the United States for approval of drugs is placebo control. I mean, Steve talked about the problem of, you go someplace and nobody wants you to randomize half the children and give them nothing. Okay, you can't do that. So that presents a big problem. We now have, we were successful in getting the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, to buy into the idea that this was so important that they should put up roughly $10 million to be able to have the definitive trial done. The other piece about definitive trials, they have to be done in the United States. Okay? And when you do a caries study in the United States, you raise the cost by double or triple what it costs to do it anyplace else. It's really, really expensive. So that study, I helped write the proposal for it, shepherded through the whole NIH process. The principal investigators at the University of Michigan, really super respected person. and they are doing it, it's gonna take 3 years, okay? And it'll probably take longer than that by the time we actually get all the data analyzed and we go back to the FDA and seek permission, basically, to apply for a new drug. So that's where we are. There's every reason to believe it'll succeed, but it's gonna take time.
How many of you in the room are over 70? Anybody in the room over 70? I mean, only one. How many over 60? Put your hand up. Over 50? Over 40? Over 30? Do you notice how the room is getting younger as we go along? Is anybody in the room never had a filling? Put your hand up. Never had a filling? So, all right. So, this, one thing I don't want you to forget in all of this, if we're talking about techniques, we're dentists and we want to fill stuff. I wrote an article one time that said, is dentistry losing its profession on the way to becoming jewelers? Now you can tell that was written about 2000, you can tell it wasn't very popular. And the other thing, I was in this panel discussion and I said, if your only tool is a drill, you'll always be looking for a hole. And we dentists are always looking for something to fill because we're surgeons and we're trained in that. But the problem is we're also trained in this other little piece called prevention. And our idea of prevention is you want the dentist to wash your teeth clean, when in all actuality, and we skip right over the real issue, which is an infectious disease, passed usually from mother to child in the first 6 months of the child's life. Once you have it, you don't get to prevent it, you get to control it for the rest of your life. There's lots of ways to control it. You can control it by brushing and flossing and removing the biofilm on a regular basis. You can do it chemically, with, like we're doing with, stuff we're talking about. You can do it nutritionally. There are a lot of ways you can control this infection, but once you have it, and so what happens is it's an infectious disease with a behavioral overtone. Okay? And we have a population that is, we have some people in our population that are disabled, 50% of them are clinically depressed, and you're not going to brush and floss your teeth or eat right when you're clinically depressed. Then you got the others on the other end that are functioning people, and what I did was, every class I ever took in dentistry was about, it taught me how to do a more extensive restorative procedure that cost more money that fewer and fewer of my patients in Myrtle Creek, Oregon that I practiced could afford. And I literally went crazy. I mean, I literally had a nervous breakdown over it because I kept going to classes and I just can't stand being perfect. Because to make perfect teeth on the tops of teeth, and so what happened to me is I went to the dental society in Oregon, decided in 1989, they were going to cover all people on Medicaid. 1999. And they were going to implement, 89, they were going to implement it in 1994, and I was a trustee, and I'm a card-carrying member of the Dental Association. I've been a president of my society. I've been a trustee to my dental association. I was on the executive committee for the dental association with the president. I did all that stuff. I've been through it, but I kept going to my dental profession and said, what are we going to do about this problem? What are we going to do about this problem? We're going to have Medicaid, we're going to have managed care, what are we going to do? And the president at that time said, sit down and shut up and home. We're tired of hearing from you. And then he said, do something about it. So I actually went home and laid on the therapist bench for 2 years because I just want to be a part of the group. But I got this quirky personality that asks too many questions and it doesn't go with the status quo and is so goddamn inquisitive that I get in trouble all the time. When I was a kid, my dad was an electric driver, and I would ride with him, and at the end of the day, he'd say, no, not one more question. I'd say, well, what about, no. So that's where I come from, and that gets you in a lot of trouble because a lot of you are there. I also have a attention span about this long, and so as a private practitioner, I got bored. But I kept seeing all these people coming in with lots of cavities, and what I did didn't work, and so what I did is I went home, laid on the therapist bench, and I figured out it was okay to be me. I found out it was okay to be me, and so to be me, I decided I didn't want to make fine restorative jewelry on the top of people's teeth. What I wanted to do was help the people in my community and one find out. And so consequently, when you pose the question, I didn't want to do dentistry, but I needed to support myself, so I built a company. I got 300 dentists to put up $10,000 each to do Medicaid welfare on a capitated basis. That's my claim to fame. 300 guys, like gals, put up $10,000 each to do Medicaid on a capitated basis, and they're all general practitioners or pediatric dentists or specialists. And put this company together because then I could get enough income so I didn't have to do dentistry. I could do the stuff I really wanted to do, which is to figure this stuff out. And then I ran across Peter. We were down, and I got appointed all kinds of committees, and because it was rare to have a dentist. And Peter and I were down in Klamath Falls, and I was the chair of a group. What are we going to do about kids with cavities? We met 3 hours every month for 6 months before we could agree upon one thing. Does that sound like dentists? Circle the wagons and shoot inward? That's that kind of folks, you know. And so the lady who was a public health person there knew Peter, who had done the program, the ABC program in Washington, came down, and Peter and I were in a snowstorm, and I asked him a question: is there anything you can do about these cavities other than fill them? Because how do you? I was trying to do the numbers on what they pay for Medicaid per patient in dentistry in Arizona. Some place between $20 and $25 per patient per month. Say $250 to $300 a year. And you're all saying, that's crazy. We can't fix all their teeth with that. And you either quit doing it, or you don't know how to do it, or you're frustrated with doing it. And so I thought, how am I going to take care of a population that can't take care of themselves, that has a disease that's out of control, and how am I going to do it for the money that they're willing to without going down and bitching about the fact that the government doesn't have any more money. How many of you want to pay more taxes? And so I built this company around that. But with silver fluoride and the things I learned from Peter, I was able to then begin to develop a whole nother way of looking at how we do this problem. And so Peter and I, through the years, and the interesting thing about it is the guys that I was with, the 300 guys, they were 45 to 55 when we started. 20 years later, they were 65 to 75, and they want to quit. And so, and I wanted to quit because I'm going to be 75 next month. And I was tired. We went from one down. When I quit, we had 700 employees and 55 dental offices. And I started out with this little idea, and be that thing about Gandhi, be who you want to be in the world. I didn't realize I was doing that, but I was. And consequently, all of these guys, who I'm absolutely blown away, they think I'm a rock star because, very frankly, I'm a kid from Myrtle Creek. And I happened to run into some people, ask them questions, and we were able to change the way things are done. And these guys are actually doing the work, and all of you folks are doing the work. Because an old guy remember, I started this company when I was 50. Quit doing the dentist and started when I was 50. Okay, and so a lot of you aren't even 50 yet. And so my point being is, this is incredible what we can do with this material. But remember, it's an infectious disease. It's passed from mother to child. Once you get it, you have to control it. And Peter and I spent a lot of time, and he didn't tell you about this, so every time we went to the FDA, they got a new employee down there. Somebody new, and we had to start over. And typically speaking, one time we had an attorney. It wasn't a dentist, it was an attorney, and that attorney thought that it should be a drug, we didn't want to do it, and so we had to go to my legislator, and we had to go over his head to the ombudsman and get it broken out of there, and then they got a new guy. Finally, they got a guy there who actually knew what he was doing. He was a friend of Peter's, who Peter knew from the school, the dental school, who actually helped us through. So this is really fun, and every one of you needs to be an emissary. If Mike Shirtcliff can do it, Peter Milgrom can do it, these guys can do it, every one of you can do it. And I think it's criminal that anybody suffers of ravages of tooth decay, was what we know today. We can go to Ecuador and look at people with cavities, but in my backyard, there's the same kids. And every child that comes in you that has cavities. And one thing we didn't even talk about today, and are you going to talk about risk assessment, Doug?
Yes.
Are you? Because we don't have the resources to fix everybody's teeth back to perfect, especially when it's going to recur in 6 to 12 months. And so how do you use the money you have and get a better result? So if you laid down your drill, the question I asked these guys, if you laid down your drill and you didn't know how to fix this problem, but you knew the problem, what would you do different? And that's what they're doing in Ecuador, in the places they've been. That's what Peter did when he looked at all the kids who had phobia. And that's what I did when I looked at a group of people that I didn't have enough money to fix all their teeth. So anyway, that's
Can I just add one more thing? I mean, you're here to learn. Hopefully they're going to get to more of the meat of this subject matter, because I know that's you all want to be able to use these approaches. But I think it's extremely important to recognize what this group of people that you have the opportunity to listen to are doing, because and the point I want to make is, I want you to think about, any of you ever read The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell? Put your hand up if you have. A lot of you, okay, all right. If you haven't read it, read it, okay? Because the question that Gladwell asks, you can read it in an hour, okay? The question he asks is, how does society change? Okay, how does dentistry change? I'm old enough, I'm 71. I'm old enough, as is Mike, to remember, as John, Doug, maybe, almost old enough, certainly Steve, when the first discussions about preventive dentistry came in, okay? When people started talking about preventing dental disease. And I was in school. And there were all these people, all of a sudden, there were people talking about stuff. They were called bad dentists. They were criticized, okay? Minimally invasive dentistry, that's not a new concept. There was a pediatric dentist in Colorado, okay, who said, well, why are we making such big holes in teeth to treat decay? Why don't we just take out the bad part? And the restorative dentistry people said, that's bad dentistry, right? Because you needed to do prevention for extension to make these big holes, okay? I'm missing a tooth because somebody made a big hole in my tooth, and 30 years later, the entire lingual of that tooth broke off, and I had to have it extracted, okay? For these principles, they weren't biological principles, they're things that people did. Well, but the point is, okay, that dentistry goes through these cycles where things start to change, just like society does, where we start to recognize that certain things, the concepts that we held before were wrong, and that we want to do something different. That's what Gladwell talks about, okay? And so what these folks are doing, what Jeanette and Steve and Doug and John and Jeremy, all these people are doing, is they are contributing to tipping the profession. And I have to tell you that when the ADA came out with its guidance on evidence-based care and said that non-restorative treatment was the standard of care, that indicates that we have reached the tipping point, okay? When the establishment says it's time to change, man, that's a big deal, okay? That's a really big deal in our and we went through this with the prevention, but the thing that you need to understand, and I'll put my sociologist hat on for just a second, okay, is that it takes a lot of different pieces, like they talk about it takes a village, okay? In fact, it does take a village. It takes a big community of folks, everybody from the people who are running dental programs like Mike was doing, to the guys in the back who do the marketing and development of drugs and devices, to the scientists in the lab. If you can't put all that together, you don't get change, okay?
And it takes all you folks out there.
And it takes all of you, okay? It takes those news people who had the courage to do stories. You can imagine, when I started smuggling fluoride varnish into the United States in 1980, okay, fluoride varnish was cleared by the FDA in 1995, okay? So for 15 years, I talked about fluoride varnish and used it in my practice, okay? Smuggled it into the United States. Okay? And you'd go and you'd talk to an audience of dentists, pediatric dentists, and they would look at you like you were from another planet. And then they would get angry, okay? Because it took a lot of people's effort to change the way we thought about that, okay? And that's still incomplete. So what is so important about what these folks are doing, and you're having the opportunity to listen to them, is that they are really contributing to this societal change, this professional change. And that is profound. It's really profound, because it not only will spur the adoption of this particular technology, but it will spur some science and some new technology which will take dentistry into another phase. Okay? And it needs to go into another phase. It can't be static.
Another little side story. I'm sitting on the back porch in my, Peter didn't tell you the whole story, how you get the stuff in from Japan. because getting stuff from Japan, it was a whole nother, we could spend all day just talking about that. But it was inconsistent, the price was inconsistent, the product was okay, but it was so inconsistent, you had to go about 18 layers to get to it, and you never knew when you were gonna get it. It wasn't very productive. So I'm sitting on the back porch having a beer with my daughter, who was an organic chemist, who works for a chemical company, about our problems. We were talking, and she says, geez, Dad, I can make some of that stuff. So she goes back to the lab about a month, a little bit later, she says, geez, Dad, I can make that stuff. And she can make it. She also makes it, they make it in China with hydrofluoric acid. Here, she figured out how to make it, how to make it in a safe way. And so the stuff's made in Eugene, Oregon. And the Elevate folks, we have to give the Elevate folks, because Peter and I were saying, we got this thing cleared, what do we do? What do we do? And so we had both done business with the folks at Elevate, who used to be Omni Dental, who sold out to 3M, who now sell most of the varnish that a lot of people do. And I don't know if they still do, but they did until these guys are taking over. But anyway, those guys are credible guys, and then we were able to work out a relationship where we get it out to you in a way. And one of the things Peter and I insist upon is it being a small bottle so you could use it, so being inexpensive. You think $120 is a lot, or whatever, 150 or whatever it is now. That's what it was when we started. Is you get a lot of drops out of there, so it's pretty inefficient. We wanted that because we wanted people to get to use them. And so, and now it's made in Eugene, Oregon, a little chemical company that produces it for these folks over here. Believe it or not, there's only one place in the United States that makes silver fluoride. Only one place, Oklahoma, I believe. And it's really hard to get. And so it's to get this whole thing together, not only took organizing my company, I got paid so much per patient per month by the state. And so therefore I could allocate the money however I wanted to, rather than chase fillings and all the stuff you have to chase to make a living. We actually could organize it different. To be able to do that, we were able to take some money and put it towards this recent R&D, and then we'll be able to work on some new products. But because of, I mean, this really is a team approach. I just haven't, I'm the guy that asks the question. Literally, I'm the guy that asks the question. That's my only claim to fame is I ask the question. And I helped Peter go ahead and get the question answered. But no, this is good, and I'm just glad that, I want to thank Jeanette for inviting us. I was surprised I got this email that said, hey, would you like to come to Arizona? I love coming to Arizona. So I want to thank her and all the rest of you. And all these guys here, and Peter, and so thank you.
Does anybody have a question?
I'm confused then. So you are saying it is, we can say it arrests caries?
As a practitioner? Of
Yes.
course.
Yes.
Of course. You can say, your license allows you to practice dentistry. Nobody tells you what you're supposed to do, okay? So your responsibility is to be up on the literature and to know, that's why you're at this course, and to provide the best possible care for your patients. And silver diamine fluoride is legal in the United States. You can buy it, you can give it, use it on your patients, you can charge the insurance
So it's
company
not
for
just
it.
a desensitizer? We're not.
No. What I'm trying to get you to understand is that our system is crazy, okay? So toothpaste, fluoridated toothpaste is a drug in the United States. In Canada, it's a cosmetic, okay? Many other countries treat toothpaste not as a drug.
Didn't they Canada approve it as a drug rather than as a device?
Yes, so silver diamine fluoride is approved as a caries, no, it's a device, but it's a caries, used for caries in Canada.
Yeah.
Because Canada has slightly different rules about how they do it. Exactly the same material. But you shouldn't hesitate at all. Tell your patients this is absolutely a legal treatment. Now it's standard of care. Give them the ADA material, okay? Nobody's ever going to question whether this is appropriate for caries. We're past that now. Yes, sir?
So Peter, certainly it's very lawful for a dentist or a provider to tell their patients that this is for caries, but could they put that in an advertisement, we use SDF for caries?
People certainly are doing that. We can't, Elevate cannot do that, okay? Mike Shirtcliff signed an agreement with the FDA that said that he would not advertise this drug for caries, okay? That's an FDA process that just it's a fluke in the way that we do business in the United States.
Part of the reason why you've never heard of me before is because I really can't talk about it in that way.
So, but it has nothing to do with what you do as a practitioner. You do, it's your license and it's your responsibility. Okay, that's why you have malpractice insurance.
And with the breakthrough therapy, you
Yes.
got a lot behind you too, because they can.
Nobody, we're past that already.
Yeah.
We've gone past that. I mean, I have to tell you that one of the questions, so I'm the person who got the 1354 insurance code, okay? Basically, Kevin Thomas and I in the back. When the committee voted, there were 21 people on the committee, they voted 19-2 in favor of this procedure code. The day that we went to do this, there were 75 proposals for procedure code changes, and only one got approved. Okay? I mean, we had it nailed, okay, because people were working together. So one of the questions the insurance commission, the code commission asked was, is it being taught in dental schools? Well, Jeremy Horst and his committee at UCSF wrote a protocol, demonstrated it was being used. Another colleague of ours at the University of Washington, a pediatric dentist, did a survey of all the pediatric dentistry programs and showed that they were all adopting this, okay? So again, I mean, it took all these different pieces to move this along. I mean, you're now the beneficiary of the effort of all these individual people. I mean, the business in the New York Times and on PBS and stuff. I mean, Steve Duffin gets huge amount of credit for doing that, for making that happen. All of us reaching out to our friends, to our relationships, people that we've known over the years, whether it's in industry or it's in academia, in journalism, to be able to move the needle. That's what you're the beneficiary of. I mean, it's fascinating. The adoption of silver diamine fluoride is faster than the high-speed handpiece. It's more rapid than the high-speed handpiece. It's more rapid than composite. There has never been anything like this. It blows me away because I understood the sociology. We had a meeting, I don't know, it was like we were maybe 3 years into this stuff with the FDA, and I asked Mike to call a meeting, and I remember it was in the Portland airport. We all got together and I said, we need to be thinking about how we're going to influence the profession to try to change this. Because I had no idea that it was going to take 7 years for the FDA to finally give us clearance. But we had those discussions because if you want to speed up adoption of something new, you have to think about what are all the barriers that a practitioner is going to face. What are all the barriers that the people who are doing the marketing are actually going to face, and how can you take the barriers down? Okay, let me give you an example of this, because there was discussion this morning about messaging, okay, about consent forms and stuff. So when we started out in Oregon, there was a lot of pushback about consent, because like, oh my God, we're doing this stuff, it makes teeth black, we better have a special consent form, we better have all these pictures. I mean, all the people who were wanting that, of course, had no clinical experience. But okay, and we said it's not going to really be an issue, okay, because we've talked to parents, we've talked to clients, okay, and we know that it's not really big an issue, okay. So we went back and we looked at the consent rate. Mike had this big outreach program. So we went back and we looked at the rate of consent for parents, for children, for SDF, okay, versus the rate of consent for fluoride varnish. There is no difference, okay? Nobody in your practice says no to you. They go to a different dentist if they're going to say no to you, right? I mean, if they don't trust you in your advice, they're going to go somebody else. Okay? So it's like you are going to play an important part in this process too. That you are sufficiently comfortable with these new technologies. You're comfortable with what you're trying to accomplish. That you can explain it to parents, and that's what you hear when you watch these videos and the news programs and stuff. Is people sort of get it, right? Oh, the field's moving along. I have something new to offer you that maybe you didn't know about. When I was smuggling my fluoride varnish at the beginning, nobody in my community was using fluoride varnish. They didn't know what it was, okay? They had no clue what it was. No dentist in the United States was taught about fluoride varnish, okay? And I'm smuggling it in, and I'm telling my patients, basically, look, I want to tell you something. There's something new here. I'm an advanced enough practitioner that I've got something that nobody else has, okay? And for a while, all of you are going to have something nobody else has. Take advantage of it, okay?
One of the things.
It'll sell itself, I can tell you that.
One of the things that all of us around the table that are here talking about have one thing in common is we all think with what we know today, it's criminal anybody ever gets a cavity. We're do. It is criminal what we know today. And every system is uniquely designed to produce what it does. So fee-for-service dentistry produces a certain result, but it leaves some people behind. And so if we can help you folks see more people and expand your base, think about it for a minute. This is pediatric dentist, I'm sorry. What if we didn't have any cavities in kids? With what we know today, there's no reason to have any. What if we didn't have any? Could we take that money and restore more teeth someplace else? Or what would we do? And so you have to start thinking about it in a different way. How do we, because one of the reasons I did this is I thought it was criminal. We dentists got bad mouth because we wouldn't take care of people less fortunate than us. A lot of us didn't because we didn't know how. And I tell my political friends, because I've got involved politically, is rather than demonize the dentist, why don't you ask him why he doesn't participate? Most people don't participate in Medicaid dentistry because, number one, either consciously or unconsciously know what they do doesn't work on that population. And so what do we do different? What do we do different with what we know? Because I know we're all smart people, do different so we can then begin to get them care so they don't have to suffer the ravages of tooth decay. We're going to think about it different. And so rather than resist it, we want to help our communities understand it and do it different so we can deliver a different model that works better. Because what we're doing doesn't work on that population, fixing their teeth because of what these guys are saying about how long it takes to get a cavity after you fix your teeth. And we've all withdrawn from it because we know it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Fixing people's teeth and the disease is out of control, which is what I told John way back when, and Peter and I talked about, doesn't work.
Hey Mike?
Yeah.
Did your dentist make as much as drill and fill dentists by doing capitation?
Yes.
More.
Or we actually had a system that figured out, we actually had a system that delivered a professionally acceptable solution where they got paid as well, and they delivered better outcomes, and they gave us the flexibility to come up with different solutions.
So what's stopping this from changing how we deliver dentistry?
We've always done it that way in the past, and every time we go to do something, the real reason why it doesn't change is because we go to the people, the 80% of the dentists that don't participate, we go to them and ask how we should participate in a population that doesn't work, and then we double down on that. We take the stuff that works in most of our offices, and we take that over to a population that doesn't work, and the experts are the people that refuse to do it. Okay? And so rather than looking at it different and saying, what is the knowledge base we have? For example, this is an infectious disease. If it's an infectious disease, where should we intervene if it's infected in the first 6 months? Peter and I did some work in Conway Falls where we took pregnant women and we did an intervention and we lowered the amount of tooth decay in their subsequent child measured against another population by 50% just by intervening with the pregnant mom. We intervened with her and did some very rudimentary, interventions. Because one of the things I believe in, if we're going to do something, let's document it and see if it works. And that's one of the reasons why I like Peter, because he's able to do that and I'm not. But yeah, what doesn't happen is because we've always done it that way before.
Anybody else have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, how are you seeing acceptance from the medical community? So importantly, that you trying to have them as a partnership,
Absolutely.
for patients. And a lot of my patients sometimes will say, well, let me check with the pediatrician just on safety. Are they accepting this as a way to arrest caries?
I think the answer is that most physicians don't have a clue about any of this stuff at this point. I actually published the only study that exists of the safety of fluoride varnish in babies. Okay, and we collected, we took babies who were in diapers, and we collected urine from them after treatments, either with fluoride varnish or with water, and actually published papers showing how safe it was. We published it in the medical journal Pediatrics, okay? And they were interested because, of course, there are pediatricians who are doing fluoride treatments, and yet there was no safety data on fluoride varnish. I mean, the dirty little secret about it is that fluoride varnish was cleared in the United States with basically no safety data. There's one investigator in Denmark who had studied the safety of fluoride varnish, a fluoride varnish that's not for sale in the United States, okay? He had studied it in 2 children. Guess whose children they were, okay? I mean, it's not, those kind of studies require multiple blood draws. So it means you take a child and over a 24-hour period you do 10 different blood draws. I mean, nobody will allow you to do that, okay? And imagine trying to do that on a baby. I mean, nobody will allow you to do it. So we published the first papers. Now we're going to publish the first data on the safety of SDF in children down as young as 13 months, okay? And again, the goal is to get that out there because it's, you know, when somebody says, well, I'm going to go check with my pediatrician, or the pediatrician's going to, you know, say, what's the dentist say about this? Right now you don't know, okay? And so that data is now going to come out. That's part of my academic role, is to make sure that we cover all these bases so it is safe. On the other end of the spectrum, there is now a clinical trial funded that's going to look at SDF in elders in the United States. It's just being funded now. It's going to go on in Cleveland, Ohio. And again, so then we'll start to have efficacy data and safety data on elders. Again, you know, because the nursing home populations, all these kind of populations that are vulnerable and you know, are badly in need of some kind of treatment. You know, we're trying to backfill in all these pieces. Again, everybody in this community now that we're talking about is contributing to getting all these pieces. I mean, we don't have protocols for treating the elderly with this stuff, okay? Nobody's published a protocol. I mean, eventually there's going to be a protocol, but the work that Doug is going to talk about that he's done with some adults that are medically compromised. I mean, there's lots and lots of problems. I mean, this is like there's only a few of these reports right now, but developing these protocols, developing the, you know, so you have a way to, something to follow. That's what's going to gain acceptance in the larger community, in the medical community, among people who are looking at these problems. That's a great question.
Very well said.
Okay, thank
Thank you so much, Peter and Mike.